Hi, on this one for the 50, I knock out the fuel system. It's kind of like a custom setup, but using Tanks Inc. Fuel injection in-tank system. I knock out all the brake lines, brake setup, and then lay down some DEI Boom Mat for sound and heat control. Let's go. So next up, we're gonna do some plumbing. I kind of went ahead, I jumped ahead a little bit. I started on the brake system here. I'll explain that later, but I wanna get the fuel system done. So I gotta get this thing up in the air because obviously I'm not gonna be able to fit under there like this. Yeah, so I'm gonna put it up, make a game plan. I should have everything I need, but I guess this is how we find out. Sorry about all the background noise. The first thing I gotta do is set up my tank. I went with a Tanks Inc. tank. They make them specific for these cars. I went with a big boy. This is the oversized one, 18 gallons, I believe. And then it comes with pretty much everything I need. I'm running the Hellcat pump because, well, we got a lot of horsepower. If this doesn't end up being enough for it, I'll end up running like this as a lift pump and then do like a surge tank system, but we'll cross that road if we need to later. But I got to set this all up. That and then the sending unit comes with a new hose. It doesn't come with a new vent hose. I think I got to reuse the old one or figure that out. And then also straps that are not bent in the right location. Obviously you gotta bend them in order to make them fit for your application. So that's what I'm gonna do. Please stay. This is gonna fall. Told you. So yeah, I'm gonna set this all up, but it is super hot out right now. I am sweating my ass off. I'll see how far I can get before I decide to call it quits. Pump assembly's all set up. They give you pretty detailed instructions on how to go about doing it, so it's kind of a no-brainer. That's ready to be thrown on. I'm gonna throw that in, and then I'm gonna work on the sending unit for the fuel gauge, so I know how much fuel I have in it, because that's what that does. I have the sending unit all set up, and then I went to go put on my fittings to go from 1/4" NPT to 6 AN for the return, and 1/4" NPT to 8 AN, because I want to run 8 AN feed lines in, but I can't even thread it in because it hits like right there, and I don't want to grind that up. I think I have a solution, so we're going to try it out. First off, I'm going to take this unit out. I'm going to cut this off, drill it out, and then run a bulkhead fitting that's 8 AN like this, seal it up really good, and then I'm going to drill and tap that for 1/4" NPT, and then I have a brass fitting here that will go in there, and then the hose will attach to that. So essentially it's the same thing, but I'm making it larger for the 8 AN stuff. And then this bulkhead is nice and tidy, so it'll only stick up that far. It'll give me a nice adjustable shot where I want it to go. So that's what I'm gonna do. I gotta pull this out, start cutting it up, I guess. All right, so I got it completely stripped down again. I got plenty of hose left over to make it work again. So I kind of had to cut that off because this stuff is kind of like heat shrink stuff. So that'll be good enough for my return and feed to mock that all up again, because this fitting is going to sit quite a bit lower than, well, these guys here. So first I wanted to see if I could drill and tap this, and I did, and it works out great. So 8 AN fitting, bulkhead fitting on a 90, drilled and tapped with 1/4" NPT on a barb, which is the same size as this. So that'll work out perfectly. I might actually cut this down just a tiny bit too. Not sure yet. I'm gonna find out once we get it all assembled. And then for the return side too, I'm gonna chop this end off, and I have another bulkhead fitting with the same size barb that'll work out great for that. So I can run a hard 90 6 AN too off it, and then it'll be able to both direct the same way. So it'll make it so much easier of an install. And then I can actually mount it, I think, backwards, and then the bend. I'm just overthinking, but yeah. So now I got to cut all this off, drill these out for the appropriate sizes in order to fit these bulks on. Here we go. It's the new setup. So the 8 AN is pretty much a press fit in there, and then it's got, you know, the nut on the end of there to really tighten it down. I did use some of this. It's the gasoline style thread, the pipe thread, just on the tip of there, so it kind of works as a gasket in between here and there. But the gas isn't going to like flow through there. Obviously, it's going to flow through here, so you really don't have to worry about that. Plus, it's going to be at the top of the tank. It's never going to be actually saturated in gas, so that should be fine. And then the 6AN bulkhead fittings, those are gasoline specific gaskets right there, so not worried about that so much. I did put a little bit of like Loctite on here because last thing I want is for this nut to fall off and this to be loose and rattle around. So yeah, this is gonna work out nicely. Now it's time to reassemble it with the pump and everything and then throw it back into the tank. Just thought I'd show you the final assembly here with the pump and everything on it. Lines, wires, everything clears, everything's good to go. So now I can just drop it in and now I can run my lines nice and easy. So I got the tank mocked up in there. And as you can see, I don't have as much clearance as I thought I was gonna. So I might have to build like a box kind of out of the plate piece in order to clear the fittings and stuff like that. Not a big deal, whatever. What's more fabrication, right? So the tank is just held up in there with the jack. And I'm having a little bit of an issue with the shackles kind of coming close to it. So I'm gonna have to bend this end up. Not a big deal, and kind of like gently massage this in order to give me enough clearance here, because I need to make sure I can have the tank over to the driver's side as much as possible, because this room up in here, that needs to fit my transmission cooler, and my transmission cooler is rather large. It's one of those Del, how do you say it? Del Rail? Sure. Yep. So it's the dual row with the fan built in. She's bulky, she's big. She barely fits in there, but as long as I get it, like I said, shoved it over all the way to the driver's side, we should be all right. I'm trying to mock up the straps. Straps they're not drilled or anything on the other end, but they are on this end, because I think sometimes there's like a hook on some models, but this one has double bolts. So I marked out where all my bends need to be. These are quite easily bendable. So I'm gonna bend this over, drill these holes, and then bend it over again in order to get my 90 that I need, and then bend, and it should cinch up the tank nice and tight. And it comes with these nice little strap or gasket strap type vibration things. Sure, that's what we're gonna call them. That'll go right there in order to make sure it doesn't rub against the tank. So yeah, let's knock all that out to get that tank permanently in there. Got the tank straps here all bent up. And then I got my clearance made right here for the shackles. I'm gonna put the hoses on, I think. Should I? I don't know. I think so. I think I'm gonna put the hoses on and try to get it in that way first, because it's kind of hard to get up in here. And then it came with a plug, a 1/4-inch NPT plug, to plug off your return if you're returning a returnless style fuel injection system. But these tanks, as I come around here, also has a pull. So like if you're still running like a carbureted setup, you can still run this tank. It comes with a block off plate for there, but it doesn't come with a plug for this. So luckily I had the correct size plug in order to put in there. So that's something to note, unless like I lost mine or something. I thought that'd be kind of dumb. Like why would they not include that there for a fuel injection tank? I don't know, whatever. Got it, so it's done. Let's throw it in. Tank is completely mounted in. I was way off on my strap dimensions, so I kind of had to redo those. I think I had to cut like 6 inches off of them. So that was a derp moment for me. But now I need to mount. So I got an Aeromotive fuel pump, or fuel filter, excuse me, with the 8AN ends. So I got 8AN straights here. Took me a while to kind of decide where I wanted to mount this, but I think it's gonna go inside the frame rail, like right there. So I'm gonna mount this up, and then this will give me everything I need to mount up in order to make my line. So you just one line off of the engine fuel rail into here, and from here back into the tank. So that should be pretty easy. Yeah, let's mount this up. So next up, I gotta get my transmission cooler up in there, because I want to get everything mounted before I start just plumbing and everything, so I know exactly how much line I have and how much more I need to buy. If so, I can get just the cooler in there, but the fan is a little bit too big. So I'm thinking it might affect its efficiency, but I don't know, how often am I going to have to use it? I don't know, but I think I'm going to risk it, because these aren't terribly expensive, and cut it off, because wind. If this is flush with this, it'll fit up in there. Same thing with this side, but it will expose the outside edges of the fan. I think it'll be fine though, because it's not gonna hit anything. It'll be fine. I'm gonna cut it up. All right, got the lines all made up. So like I said, I got 8AN. I'm using PTFE. I'm just using like the Evil Energy, the eBay stuff. It seems to work fine for me. Yeah, 8AN feed with 6AN return. As you can see, they go in that direction. We can get underneath the car a second here. Hopefully I can show you everything. Yeah. Okay, so they come out there. I'm using cushion clamps to kind of tie them together. Up there, up along the frame rail. The 6AN can actually go up over the support bar without any interference. So I kind of did that, helps tidy it up. And then another cushion clamp there. And I'm using threaded insert or nutserts in the frame with 6AN hardware, all stainless steel, for cushion clamps to hold there. They come out with the support, another cushion clamp to hold it. And then we have the fuel filter here, the air motor fuel filter that's mounted nice and solid. And then it comes up over here. And then the 6AN, I have a bulkhead with like a 90 to a 90 to do a jog. Honestly, I did this because I didn't have enough line and I have to use some scrap that was left over. I bought like 10-foot line kits. I should have bought the 15 and I could have made it in one shot, but that didn't happen. So that had happened. I actually kind of made it nice because I could go from the tank up to this bulkhead fitting. This is one line, and then from the engine down to this fitting, it's one line. It's a little bit easier in order for route and stuff like that, so not a big deal. And then I got another cushion clamp there in order to hold it nice and tight against the floorboard in order to keep it away from the exhaust here. Yeah, they both just kind of come up. So that's the return right there, back behind, and the feed up to the rail. So yeah, got that done. Next I got to knock out the transmission cooler stuff. Transmission, I'm losing my mind. I'm so tired. Transmission cooler lines, but I had to order more line for that in order to knock that out. So that should be here either tomorrow or the next day. But next up, I think I'm gonna actually be working on the brakes, the brake line stuff, because I should have all that by tomorrow. So I decided to revisit this whole pump to floor clearance situation because I don't want to have to make a false floor. That's dumb. I don't know what I was thinking about it. So in order to solve it, I've got some strips of ABS plastic, pretty thick stuff. So I think these are like 1/8 of an inch, more than that, quarter, maybe that'll half, sure. This thick, this is how thick. So this will go in between the floor and the tank, and that will lower the tank down just a little bit in order to gain clearance for that hose right there. But the fitting actually has to move up a little bit. So I got these copper washers that I'm gonna make fit in there to raise this section up. And then the return bulkhead, after the 90, it gets way, way too high. So I got this from CJ Motorsports, but is a hard 90, 6AN with the same barb fitting on it. So that will solve that issue right there. So I'm going to get this all knocked out and put it all back together. And I'm really hoping that this solves all my issues and that pan piece right there can go on with no issue. That took way longer than I would have liked it to, but ended up like clocking it a certain way in order to get it to go where I want all the fittings to go. And then I actually kind of like beat in the tank a little bit with my ball peen hammer in order to make it clearance to lay down flat. And now panel will work. So cool. Finally. Yeah, way too long, like I said, but got it knocked out. So continuing on with all the plumbing, I pretty much wrapped up all of my brake line stuff. Didn't really film any of it because honestly it's kind of boring, but I'll show you my setup. So I just have, a booster, a master. I got rid of the distribution block because those things always go bad. I got a TBM brakes line lock system. So this is the front that comes down and then the rear comes down. And then on the frame rail side here, I got a brake bias adjuster. So this will be able to adjust how much pressure the rear gets so I can dial that in later. And this is the T that goes off. This one goes to the front, and this one goes to the rear. I am using stainless steel and copper just because like bendability. So the copper is much easier to work with, but the stainless steel has, you know, obviously a longer lifespan. And it was just kind of like what I had lying around. So I made everything work for my purposes. And then I got the rear that goes all the way back, and I'll show you my rear setup. So the rear runs all the way back on the outside of the frame rail. These little stainless clamps work awesome. You can get them on Amazon pretty dang cheap, but it keeps everything nice and tight. I had to use one union block here, junction block, in order to run the line complete. Otherwise, it really wouldn't make it, because it kind of comes up and then goes over the frame rail. Hold on, let's get some light. There we go. So you see it comes up over the frame rail, then runs along the brace section here, and then into like an 18-inch stainless steel brake line with 4AN fitting, or is it 3AN? I don't remember now. One of the ANs, but I think it's a 3AN. I don't know now. Whatever. Anyway, it's an AN fitting onto a stainless steel brake line. I think this is an all-star performance. Again, you can get these on Amazon pretty dang cheap. It comes down into like a T-block, and then it goes to each brake line setup that is mounted to the frame. Nice and clean, tidy, out of the way. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the brakes. I'm gonna bleed them yet, but I'll wait to do that when I do like all the fluids at once. Next up, I think I'm gonna make some transmission cooler lines, because I got it routed right here, but it's not, she's not hooked up to anything. Where did it go? It's right here. It's supposed to go here. And then I'm waiting on Amazon package, should show up today to mount this one up. So hopefully I can get these wrapped up, and that would be good to go. And a side note too, if you ever do brake lines, pick one of these up. I got these on this one from Eastwood. I think there's some knockoff brands now that do pretty much the same thing, but this tool is the best. Don't even bother with that like twisty those things are junk. I've used them in the past before, not worth it. Invest in one of these. They work freaking awesome, especially if you're gonna do stainless steel. Because even with this, it's such a pain to like crimp it. There's plenty of videos out there on how to use this, so I'm not really gonna show you. But trust me, they work awesome. And don't forget to put your fitting on the end of it before you go ahead and flare it up. Another note too, if you're making a long run like this, put a jog in your line, because that way you have a little bit of play to expand and contract for your joint when the fittings go together. I would think that that'd be a no-brainer, but if you didn't know, now you know. And if it's your first time doing it, make sure, a little bit of a jog makes it a lot easier to put these things together. So next up, I'm gonna finish my boom mat install. DEI jumped on this build and is helping me out a ton. I'm getting this thing all completely sound and thermally insulated. So as you can see, I got the firewall section all squared away. Had to in order to get the steering and some other components in there. But I got to do the rest of it. And then I also have a really sweet headliner unit that I want to show you. But I will show you when I get to that. But I just want to get the flooring knocked out right now. Got that DEI Boom Mat sound deadening. That is a weird word to say for me for some reason. I want to say dentening. It's deadening. See, I can't even say it right. We even want to try to say it right. Anyway, looks awesome. Looks very professional. Took forever for me to lay it out because I guess I was way too picky, because honestly, it doesn't really matter. Because it's all going to get covered up in carpet anyway, but I just wanted to make all my lines clean and everything. Utilize as much of it as I could, but it does work. I mean, it takes away that tinny sound that your metal has, so I'm just gonna keep slapping this. Yeah, no, it works out awesome. I'm really pleased with it. This is where I'm gonna call it for this one, just because if I keep going, this is gonna be like an hour-long video of like tedious little jobs that nobody actually cares about. They just wanna see end results, of course. But got a lot of the little things done, and that's kind of the process that I'm at right now, is just trying to knock out as many of the little things as I can in order to get this thing on the road. So if you guys made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. Hit that like, hit the subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.